Hi, welcome, Jessica. I'm so glad we got a chance to connect.
My name is Jessica Denny. My Athabasca name is Nani Nifna. I am from Chisachina, Alaska and Tanacross, Alaska. My mother is from Chisachina, Alaska. My father is from Tanacross, Alaska. And I spend my time in Chisachina and I also spend my time in town. But a little bit about myself. I grew up in Tok, Alaska, and in my early 20s, I was still going to school and I moved to Chisachina, Alaska for a language program. And so I spent from 2002 to now working with my tribe, which is Chishna, in language revitalization and doing cultural activities and camps and stuff. And so I spent over 15 years in working for a nonprofit organization and working for my local tribe. Um, and I have a family. My husband is Matt, and I have three daughters. There's Skylar, Aurora, and Ariel. And with having a family, I needed a lot of flexibility. And so I decided to start my own company called the Alaska Leadership Group. But we're a small for-profit business. And we are just creating a community and a space for sharing and sharing traditional knowledge and creating opportunities for people who don't have access to that. Sometimes they live out of state, they don't live in the village. Even sometimes at home, there's, in the village, there are situations where people don't have their family available for such reasons to teach that. And so we were creating opportunities to share Indigenous ways of knowing. So I do a lot of work with my grandmother. Her name is Lena Charlie. She's from Chisachina. She's in her 90s. She's remarkable. I believe she is one of the first women to have a big game guide hunting license and the first Alaska Native woman to have a big game guide hunting license. And so she was guiding, taking men out hunting for moose and doll sheep and grizzly bears and stuff. And so she did that while she was still raising a family. And she also had a dog team, and she raced in the Copper Basin 300. She raced in the Yukon Quest, and she did that multiple times. And she really enjoyed it because she said that's like reminds her of how it was growing up. Um, and she tans hides. I grew up watching her. I'd spend my summers down at my grandma's house and stuff, and she'd always be working on the hide between feeding dogs and cutting fish, checking the fish well, taking care of the smokehouse and stuff, and then taking care of her grandkids. So we've always seen that. And I've been fortunate enough to grow up with that in my life. And the very first time I was able to have experience with tanning a hide from start to finish was at my late grandpa's potlatch. They harvested a moose for his potlatch. And after, like with a funeral potlatch or death and stuff, you're supposed to stay home and not go around and keep yourself busy. So my grandmother and I tanned the moose hide that was harvested from that moose. And it was really nice. It was really pretty. She got to use it to make slippers and mucklucks and stuff for AFN that
That's
winter.
amazing. And then, so what brought you to a couple of weeks ago where you hosted this Moosehide tanning class workshop?
So in my heart, I've been wanting to do a Moosehide tanning class for several years, at least 4 years, I would say. And my grandmother is getting older, and my other grandma, Laura, is also getting older and stuff. And so I wanted to just embrace the opportunity right now to do a Moosehide tanning class. And I wanted it to be inclusive of other people that would like to invest in themselves and gaining traditional knowledge, and also wanting to be, knowledge holders and wisdom keepers. So this spring, I spoke with my grandma and I spoke with some of the elders in our community about hosting a Moosehide tanning camp, and they were excited about it. They were glad to hear that we would have Moosehide tanning as a class. And so with their okay, I advertised to host the first annual Moosehide Tanning Camp with Alaska Leadership Group. I was surprised. So when I originally posted the class, I was thinking about accepting 6 to 8 participants. And I had an influx of participants. So we ended up bumping the amount from 6 to 8 people to 12 people. And then we even moved it up to 13 people. So we had 13 people from across the state. From some of our participants, like one is from, her family is from Metlakatla to Northway to Anvik, Chickaloon, Kenai, like all over the state. And these group of people wanted to come together and learn how to tan moosehide in the traditional way. The method that we used is very traditional. We didn't use any other soaps or any synthetic ingredients and everything. And so even the tanning process was very traditional. And we're getting ready to do the second segment of our camp. So it's pretty exciting.
That sounds like such an amazing experience. What are some of the things that the participants, I think you mentioned in a previous conversation that they were all women. So what was some of the surprises that happened throughout the workshop?
So actually, and we had 12 women and 1 gentleman at our workshop. Yeah, so he balanced that out, that it was important for him to be there. Yeah, it was very good. So I was setting my intentions the day before about, I want people to leave spiritually charged, not just learning a traditional way of practicing moosehide tanning and working with elders, but to leave in a really good space so they can go and do good work in whatever their careers are in or their life work is in. And so when we had the camp, a lot of the participants said they got a lot more than learning how to tan a moosehide. It was very healing, very powerful feeling. Our minds, our spirits, and our bodies felt stronger when we left that space. And so that was very prevalent across the whole group. Everybody expressed that. And one really neat thing is the weather was terrible. And I was getting worried about camp. I was like, it's raining, it's cold, it's windy, it's raining, it's windy. And the morning that we had camp, there was no rain. So from the first day to the last day, we had remarkable weather. It was sunny, it was warm. Participants were even wearing t-shirts and tank tops and even walking around barefoot. It was that warm. It was like the last bit of summer, whatever was left of summer showed up for us on that day. And so I think it's important to mention that because for me and some of the people that means something. Like, I think our ancestors were very proud of what we were doing and what creating this moosehide tanning community with our group. And so I think that was just something worth mentioning.
Can you tell me about what it was like to spend time with your grandmothers and other elders who were there to help? And I just imagine that's so dreamy to spend some time with them and then share them. You basically shared them with all these other people from around Alaska.
My grandma, Lena Charlie, she lives in Chisachina, and she grew up in Chisachina, Indian River to Bensonitas to Lost Creek, Nebezna area. So she is what we call Tatla Dene, or like headwaters people, the headwaters of the Copper River. And her sister, Laura Hancock, her younger sister, Laura Hancock, is also from Chisachina, and she also is raised in the same area. And then Jenny Sanford is from Scotty Creek area. And Scotty Creek is really close to the border, kind of between Northway and Beaver Creek in that area. And she spent many decades living in Mentasta. Alaska. And so she's been in the Otna region for a very long time. Her late husband is Otna and stuff. And so she's also in-law, my grandma and my aunt, or my grandma Laura and my grandma Lena's aunt. Those were the elders that we were able to have join us for our camp. And they were there for 4 days, and they were physically engaging in showing us how to tan Moosehide. And I think one of my favorite things about these elders is that they don't come in and tell us we're doing it wrong. They'll just come in and show us again so we can figure it out for ourselves. And I think it's a very valuable interactive and teaching lesson, because when you do that, once you figure it out, so I think it was really good, because it also gave us time to understand what we're doing. Everybody loved them. They're all calling them grandmas and stuff, like my grandma. Yeah, it was really good to share them with everybody. And the reason I think this is so important in sharing not just traditional knowledge, but elders, is I see it as, if we all share traditional knowledge, we're creating a blanket. We're putting pieces together. We're putting it all back together. And that blanket is going to wrap our people and protect our people from alcohol abuse to suicide to just living healthy and being prosperous. And so that's a big part of why I want to, and I've been working towards sharing our elders with other people so that they can heal and be stronger.
Yeah, I can definitely see the benefits of having them, and then they have a certain way of teaching that is so meaningful. That just sounds so nice, and I just loved seeing all the pictures. 2 questions. One,
Okay.
do you have any advice for people who are interested in Moosehide tanning, like getting started, or any advice for other people who maybe want to do a Moosehide tanning class for their community?
So with the first question about people who are wanting to get in to tanning Mooshides, I think I would say, see who you have available in your village or in your community. Start asking questions and taking notes on how the Moosehide tanning was practiced in that area. Because I think, like, with the participants that came to the camp that we hosted in Chisachina, they all have access to resources, and they're seeking out resources right now, but they have this general understanding of the first steps of tanning a moose hide, and they can go back to how their community practices it. So they have a foundation that they're starting from, and then they can go back into what their village or community has traditionally practiced. I also think that there are a ton of resources on Instagram and Facebook on tanning moose hide, and I think that's awesome. But yet at the same time, like, when you watch something and then when you engage in it with a group of participants, it's a completely different experience. I really think that if you're interested in doing that, just reach out to your elders in your community, your moms, your dads, your grandma, grandpas, uncles, and aunties, and just start talking and learning about how it was practiced in your area. I think that's a very valuable foundation. And then going on the internet and looking, but a good portion of the participants that attended the Moosehide tanning class are going to come back next year, and they're going to go through the process 3 times so that they have a good understanding of the steps and how to do it in a way that is respectful to the Moosehide and our culture, so that they can go back into their communities and help mentor Moosehide tanning with their elders in their community at their culture camps or any other activities they have in their communities. And so that's remarkable. We have one participant that's actually going to do the first 3 steps of Moosehide tanning in her village the second week of October. So she's going to teach the youth how to flesh a hide, remove the membrane, um, shave the hair off with a knife, and then go back through and remove that top layer of skin that has the hair follicle on there. So she'll prep the hide, and then she'll freeze it and leave it for next summer, and then do the second part um, with her youth of her village and stuff. And so that's just one example of the participants that were engaged in this process. So this group is turning into a cohort. And that was one of the other things. I really wanted to build a community of Moosehide tanning in Alaska because it's just a remarkable practice. People still practice it, but they're just people tucked away here and there. And we don't have a platform really, or a community where we can collaborate, co-create, or help each other out and, practicing Moosehide tanning. And so with this first camp, it seems that that's something that's coming out of that, is to build a community of Moosehide tanning people that know the process, understand the process, and help each other, in future activities or camps or culture camps and stuff. And so keep an eye out for that.
Very exciting.
It is.
Work and a huge investment, I'm sure, but that will pay off for years to come.
So, and that was also initiated by my grandma. She told them, I want you to come back here next year. If I am still here, I want you to come back. And so she wants them to go through the process a couple of times at her place so that they feel comfortable about sharing and just feel really comfortable about doing it and stuff. And so that has also created this sense of community with the group. They have a willingness to allow Moosehide tanning to be a part of their lives and their part of their life work. So that was pretty special to hear and stuff from some of the individuals, and just listening to how this one camp has impacted their life and how they want to integrate that into their future. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for others who want to do their own Moosehide tanning class?
I think doing it in the summertime, especially for your first time, is probably like the best time to do it, where the weather is nice and warm and stuff. And the other advice is that you have to be aware of the climate, like if it's going to rain or not rain, and how the weather is when you're going to be doing your Moosehide tanning, especially if you're going to do it from start to finish, because there are different points through the process where your hide has to dry. And it's very hard to dry hide if it's raining outside. If it's, late fall and there's a lot of rain, it's going to be very hard to make sure your hide is nice and dry and hard. So, and the other thing is, like, do it in a group, especially when you're learning. Find some people that want to do it with you. The very first step, I think, is the hardest step, and that's flushing a hide. It's physically enduring. It makes you tough in your mind and in your body, and teaches you patience. And so I really think that if you were going to work on a Moosehide, or anybody that wants to work on a Moosehide, find 2 or 3 people to do it with you so that you can not be overwhelmed with the process,
Yeah. What kind of support did you receive from your community and network?
So I was getting a bit nervous because I put out some requests for moose hides, and the weather is just different this year. People got their moose really late. They actually were getting moose after our camp. We were fortunate enough to have 2 fresh moose hides, and then we also had one that was frozen and saved from the year before. So we had 3 hides that we worked on during camp, but we didn't have anything really come in. And then after camp was done, then hunters started calling and say, I have a hide, come pick it up. And it's been remarkable, just with the impact of on social media of sharing this camp and this experience. I've received several phone calls on picking up hides, moose hides. And so right now I have 8 hides at my house for next year. So I'm hoping, if everything goes well, I'm hoping to do my second camp with the group I'm working with right now in our elders. And then I'm also planning to have a whole nother camp for people that want to do, that are not a part of the initial group. And so I have enough hides to do 2 camps next summer. Once you start telling people that you're taking hides, you'll be surprised on how many people are willing to say, "Hey, I have this hide. Do you want it?" And they feel like they're a part of something, even though they're not there, and it's nice. And that's what you need. Even with collecting caribou leg bones and moose leg bones and moose brains, those were some of the things that we needed, because we need the brain to tan moose hide. And the way we do it is that we ferment it. And when it's a fermented moose brain, you can usually get 4 to 5 hides from one brain. So we had 4 moose brains donated. So I think we're good for maybe 2 years on tanning. And then
Wow.
also the caribou and moose legs, we clean those and cut those into making fleshing tools, like traditional fleshing tools. So participants received a scraping. So we have 4 tools that we really actually, okay, the tools that we use, we have a skin scraper. And the participants have a metal one and a wood and a bone one. And then the next thing is this half circle shaped tool that's used to scrape the hide. And we call those kazot, and if it's a rock, it's called bendasi. And so those are some of the tools that the participants received from camp to take home, because somebody has to make those tools for you. They don't sell them in stores. You can't get them at trapping and tanning facilities and stuff.
Are there any other surprising or unexpected things that came out of the um, workshop? I mean, it all sounds amazing. And you've already mentioned amazing things that happen. But anything that comes to mind, or maybe any big lessons?
Like I said before, when we were starting this and planning it, we were thinking that we were just conveying traditional knowledge. We didn't understand that the emotional, spiritual, and the impact that it would have on individuals. Through the 4 days, there was a lot of time spent working and talking. And in those conversations, people talked about everything from boarding schools to traditional ways of hunting and gathering, to childbirth, motherhood, to addiction, substance abuse, suicide, and how do we want to make our Alaska Native community stronger, and how do we take this home, and the value of sharing. To share your people and your knowledge is a very powerful thing. And I think once you experience that, you'll know how powerful it is. And so one thing that was the very last day was a bit emotional, because we spent all this time together and we had to say goodbye, but we weren't done. But we still had to say goodbye. And so the participants brought gifts of like jam, honey, beadwork, cedar, birch bark baskets, and for the elders that were teaching us and guiding us through this process. And it was just beautiful to see that acknowledgement. And one of the participants we even sang traditional songs. So we heard songs from your coworker. She's from Metlakatla, and from Northway, from Otna region, it was pretty neat. Denina, it was pretty nice to see that and experience that. And they want to make t-shirts now, and somebody made a song in their native language. And so there's definitely this understanding. And I think the most powerful thing too is in the beginning, there was this very understanding in the very first morning, the very first day, that we are all co-creators in this. It wasn't, I might have just did the forms and kind of got things together logistically speaking, but it was a co-creation of us 14 almost like 18 individuals that made it happen. If it wasn't for the participants who signed up, who took time off of work, who drove 5 hours one way to this little tiny village in the interior of Alaska, it wouldn't have happened if they didn't, make that self-commitment to it. Yeah, so it was good. All of it was good. I don't have anything bad to say or yeah.
Well, I definitely commend you for putting this together, and just creating this awesome and amazing and healing space that's probably going to have ripples down in the future. So excellent job.
Yeah, we were just like, we were even talking about like, we can't even imagine where this is going to be in 20 years, if we keep doing this, if we just keep moving along, it's going to probably exceed what we think it's going to be, or yeah, it's good. I was so thankful to experience that with all those individuals.
Do you have anything else to add about any future other camps or projects?
One project that Alaska Leadership Group is currently working on is called the Copper River Women Project. And that's it's a small project, and we're interviewing women along the Copper River on traditional ways of utilizing the Copper River, subsistence use, traditional ways of knowing and stuff. And so that's exciting. That's something that's very near in the future. So Alaska Leadership Group offers courses and classes on anywhere from vest making to slipper making to whatever somebody needs or tribe needs help in doing the logisticals of it and setting things up. We're there to help. So it's kind of exciting to see what comes out of future projects and that in terms of that. But one thing I really want to share is that we have a couple of Indigenous retreats that we're working on, and we're working on a Indigenous women's retreat this winter, where women could come and get indigenously and spiritually charged, so they can come and practice basketry making, sewing, making medicine, and creating opportunities to think and process stuff. And so that's exciting, and it's going to be in the wintertime. And so I'm excited for that. That's on my mind right now. But for next summer, we're going to probably have our second annual Moosehide tanning camp. And then we're going to also we're also going to have a birch bark basketry retreat where individuals can come in for a weekend for 3 or 4 days and learn the whole process of making birch bark baskets.
That sounds so awesome. All of it. Do you want to share some photos, or unless you had something else to add?
I'm just thankful for the opportunity, and I'm excited to see our group again. So our group is meeting up next week to finish up. We'll see. I don't know, with the state of our state and with everything with COVID, we're planning to, but we might have to reschedule and plan for later, just for safety reasons and responsibility to community. But we're planning to meet again for another 3 to 4 days. Actually, 3 days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this is the steps where we're going to smoke the moosehide, and not for that long, and then put it in the fermented brain mixture, and then start doing the wringing, scraping, soaking process a couple of times before we do our final softening and smoking. And so I'm hoping we'll have it done in those 3 days, but I think I'm being very optimistic. It's a lot of work, and especially when you're working in groups, things take a little bit longer, because sometimes I find that individuals will talk about the process before they do it instead of just jumping in. And so I might take a little longer than that, but we're hoping to have 3 beautifully tanned, smoked moose hides. I'm enjoying the process too.
And that's cool that they're all willing to come back and spend more time on it and try to finish it up a little bit more.
Yeah. It took a lot of people to make this happen. It took the elders, the participants, the people who donated materials for it to happen. Shishna tribe, who was supportive in offering some of their facilities so individuals could stay without having to worry about paying for rent, or not rent, hotel or any other fees to stay at Airbnb or B&B in the community. So they were very supportive in that, and very supportive of letting us bring so many individuals into our community. And what they actually did is they had spaces set aside for their tribal members to attend. And since there was such a high demand, and with COVID, they pulled their spaces so they can have their camp separate or later, so that the individuals could come together at one time and participate. And the reason why they did that is they wanted to reduce the commingling between the community and the participants. Yeah, so it was very smart. It was good. And so that's just one way that they're being supportive in this process, and I really appreciate that. So here's the hide that the girls are still trying to get some of the membrane off. And right here, a participant is taking the hair off, and we use a knife to shave it off, and you want it really, really short, where it's almost like a 5 o'clock shadow, like shorter
Yeah.
than a buzz cut. Yeah, really short.
Mhm.
And these photos I'm sharing with you were taken by Denali Chase.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so she did a really good job of just capturing moments. It's the beauty in the process.
Amazing.
And then there's my grandma Lena. She's 91, and she was showing some of the participants here how to shave this off, the little hairs, skin to look white. Sometimes it'll look almost like pink, but she was just demonstrating again the process of doing that. And even though we were outside, the participants still wore masks around elders for safety reasons.
So big.
You know what? This is actually the smallest of the three. There was two that were a nice size. Here we have participants taking the hair off. And there's a certain way you hold a knife when you remove the hair. And the knives that you use during this process are only sharpened on one side. So the side of the knife that is touching the skin is not sharpened, so that you don't cut into the skin and damage it. And the way we hold these knives, it reduces us from pushing on the skin. We're just gliding it across the hair with this approach. I think if you did it any other way, you'd put too much pressure on your hide and you'd have little striations or cut marks. But here it looks really good. This is kind of like how it looks when you take all the hair off before you start scraping it. This photo is a photo of two elders working on the hide. So they were demonstrating how to remove the hair. Traditionally, my grandma and all my grandmas used these hickory knives to cut hair off of the moose hide. But we discovered at this camp that Cuisinart knives work really good on removing hair. So here you can see she's using a Cuisinart knife. So we had Cuisinart knives that we were using to remove the hair. If you go to Value Village or Bishop's Attic and you see a big Cuisinart knife, I would grab it if you're gonna do Moosehide tanning, because they worked really good. And even one of the participants, when she got home, she went to the thrift store and she found one, and she's using it right now to dehair a hide in Chickaloon. It's our first time making these tools. The tools I grew up using, I don't know how old they are. They're probably from like the 60s or 70s, because they look well used and worn, and some of them are a bit rusty. So we use this to scrape the hides, to soften it, to get all extra like fibers off, and just to break it down a little more so it's soft.
Those are some amazing photos. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for sharing about the camp. I hope that it continues as you intended, to continue into the future. So Anabase for your time and all the love that you
Yeah.
put into this.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having time so I can share this with you too. I'm so thankful in that. Um, I really believe it's gonna grow. I can just see it in the people that were there and the people that have questions and the interest across the state. Um, it's something that people are desiring right now. I'm excited to see where this is going to be in even 3 years. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's like really good medicine.